Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking on a huge topic, 4,000 years of Chinese history. And you might be thinking, how on earth are we going to do that in just a few minutes? Well, let's find out. I mean, seriously, think about it. We're talking about dozens of dynasties, countless wars, massive cultural shifts. You could spend a lifetime studying just one part of it. Trying to memorize every single emperor or every battle, that's not going to work. So where do you even start?
Well, here's the secret. You don't try to memorize all the facts. You look for the pattern. It's kind of like finding the operating system for a civilization, right? A deep, recurring code that's been running in the background, shaping China for literally thousands of years.
And it turns out it really boils down to two big, fundamental cycles that just repeat over and over again. These are the two patterns that have acted as that core operating system. And if you can get your head around these, you've pretty much got the key to understanding the grand narrative of Chinese history. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the political cycle. This is all about the mandate of heaven. Think of it as the unwritten code that decided who got to rule the empire, and maybe even more importantly, how they could lose that right. Now, this wasn't like the divine right of kings you hear about in Europe, where God picks a family and that's it. Nope. The mandate of heaven was more like a performance-based contract with the universe. The philosopher Mencius had this great line. He said, "Heaven sees as the people see." What he meant was, if the people were suffering, you could bet heaven was noticing. And this belief created this incredibly predictable rhythm, this dynastic cycle. It goes like this. A strong new leader comes along, unites the country, and everyone's like, great, he's got the mandate of heaven. And things are good, for a while. But then corruption starts to creep in. The government gets lazy, taxes go up, and then bam, a flood, a famine, some big disaster hits. And that's the signal. The people rise up, convinced the dynasty has totally lost heaven's favor, and the whole thing starts over. So you gotta wonder, what was the engine driving this constant cycle of boom and bust? Well, it was this relentless tension, this constant push and pull between three key groups in Chinese society. Let's break down how that worked. Okay, at the heart of it all was this constant struggle. Think of it like a giant tug of war. In one corner, you've got the emperor and his court in the capital. They want to centralize power, and most of all, they need to collect taxes to run the whole show. And in the other corner, you have the powerful, wealthy local landowners, the gentry. Their goal is simple: hold on to their local power and, you guessed it, avoid paying those taxes. It was just this endless battle. And then you throw a massive problem on top of this struggle: the population squeeze. The number of people was always going up, but the amount of farmable land, that pretty much stayed the same. So look at these numbers. In just over 150 years, the amount of land available to support one person was cut almost in half. That's a huge problem. And this is the key. This massive imbalance, as historian Wolfram Eberhardt wrote, created widespread poverty, total desperation. You have this massive class of poor peasants, right? They're getting squeezed from both sides by the tax collectors from the capital and the powerful landlords in their own village. So when a rebellion starts, who do you think fills the ranks of the army? Exactly. These are the people who topple the dynasty and reset the whole cycle. Okay, so for millennia, these internal cycles, this was the whole story. China was, for all intents and purposes, the center of its own universe. But then came the 19th century, and an outside force showed up that didn't just disrupt the pattern, it completely shattered it. And look, this was not just another invasion of nomads from the north. China had dealt with that for centuries. No, this was a totally different kind of challenge. The industrial power, the economic systems, the military technology of the West, it was a fundamental collision that the old Chinese system it had no answer for. And what followed is what the Chinese today call the century of humiliation. It was just one crisis after another. You have the Opium Wars, where they're forced into these totally unequal trade deals. Then that's followed by the Taiping Rebellion, a civil war so massive and devastating, it's possibly the bloodiest in all of human history. The old system wasn't just creaking, it was failing, and failing spectacularly. And the human cost? It's just staggering. I mean, it's almost impossible to get your head around. Entire regions of the country were depopulated by these revolts and famines. You see this number, 10 million? That's the estimated death toll from just one of these rebellions in one part of the country. Just incredible. So here's the absolute game changer. The mandate of heaven was broken. But this time, there was no new dynasty waiting in the wings to pick up the pieces. The cycle was shattered. When that last dynasty finally collapsed, the problems China faced were just too big, too modern. The old playbook of just find a new emperor, it was useless. And so, when the last emperor was overthrown in 1911, it kicked off this chaotic, desperate, almost century-long search for a completely new operating system, a totally new way to organize China for the modern world. And everybody, I mean everybody, had a different idea for what that new system should be. You had capitalists in the big coastal cities pushing their vision. You had revolutionaries trying to build a strong, unified nationalist republic. You had students coming back from Europe and America with all these wild new ideas, like democracy and even Marxism. And then you just had powerful warlords carving up the country for themselves. It was a total free-for-all. Really, the entire 20th century in China can be understood as this one massive, desperate struggle to find an answer, to create a new, modern Chinese state. And that search led them through a weak republic, a brutal civil war, a horrifying invasion by Japan, and it all culminated in 1949 with the victory of the Communist Party, which finally, for better or worse, imposed a new, powerful, centralized order on the country. So, why does any of this ancient history matter today? Because to understand modern China, to get why there's such an intense focus on stability, to understand the deep suspicion of outside forces, to see where those immense social pressures come from, you have to understand these deep, deep historical patterns, the cycle of centralization, collapse, and renewal. Which of course leaves us with one big final question. Have China's ancient cycles truly been broken for good, or are we just watching a new one begin?